So you know I'm about to timestamp it. It is, what is it? August 19, 2026, and it's approximately 6:45 p.m. on that eastern side. We flip the poles. It might be Western Gregorian calendar. I'm doing the dishes and I'm about to cook some food, and here we are. I want to look at some YouTube University. And guess what popped up in my good old algorithm? I'm over here on YouTube, like I just said, and the title is People Are Dying. Prophetic warning, the hidden deadly curse of Freemasonry and Eastern Star. Okay, so this is coming from @lala.jenkins over on YouTube. I've come across her page almost a year ago. I came across her channel, so they give out some very informative information. Again, I'm not attached to any religions. However, I do listen to all information and any knowledge. Shout out to these ladies that's getting ready to give us some knowledge. And yeah, let's get into the video. What is going on? Love y'all.
Both of my grandparents, my father's parents in particular, were Freemasons. My grandmother.
A lot of people was dying.
That's exactly what I was coming back to say. That's what I believe. We've had an inordinate amount of early death in my family. And growing up, I didn't know what that was, but I just, in big families, one of the things that they say in big families is like, well, it's just more of us to die. But one thing that just never was jiving was the ages, how young they were.
Nice intro. Exposing the deadly curses of Freemasonry and Eastern Star.
My family began to suffer an inordinate amount of death and dying. In January of 1988, right? So I hadn't even been in the organization a year yet. In January of 88, my grandfather died of a strange heart attack. The very next month, my step grandmother, because my grandfather had remarried. This is my dad's father. My step grandmother died. The following month, my baby first cousin, she was a baby, like I think a month old, maybe 2 months old, died. And that next month, my sister's godmother died. You and I might talk about this a little bit later. I understand now why. I do. I didn't then. It was like back-to-back death of people who seemingly were dying early. And I was like, what is happening? And then 2 years later, my dad died. And my father died at a really, really young age, and he died really tragically. And your girl was done. Your girl was done with a capital D. I was like, I would like to check out here. And I was deeply grieving. And then in 2005, I started to get sick. Inexplicably sick.
Shop Ashley and meet your new favorite seat, the Omaha Sectional. Relax, stress-free with stain-resistant performance fabric.
I start to get sick. Inexplicably sick. Mind you, between this period of time, I had lost some other cousins too. And I had lost one cousin, a first cousin, at 35 to lupus. And these symptoms that I started having around 2005 were very similar to lupus, because I had watched my cousin go through his illness. And I was like, I'm about the same age. What's going on here? But we had another first cousin at the time who was sick. And he was like, gee, I don't think that's lupus. I think you have what I have. And he had the disease that Bernie Mac had, sarcoidosis. It's an autoimmune disease, and it's kissing cousins to lupus. It looks like lupus. It mimics lupus. It's usually deadly in men. And unfortunately, in my first cousin, it was fatal, and he didn't make it. But I thank God for him, because he sent me to the doctor with this potential diagnosis. And the doctor was like, yes, you have sarcoidosis. In 2023, a lady in my mother's church, a woman that I knew, passed away. And my mother and I went to her service. But the service wasn't at my mother's church. And I was like, this is strange, Ma. She was like, yeah, I don't know. They're going to hold the funeral services at the funeral home. I said, okay. So we get to the funeral home. This lady who I knew her my whole life. She's laying out dressed in regalia. She got on a sash, a white robe, white gloves, a little hat that had like a little fezzy thing on the side. There's a picture of her next to the casket with that same kind of dress on. And there's a lot of men at this funeral with aprons on. And I was like, what is happening? And my mother and I sat down, and my mother whispered to me, she said, I did not know that Miss So-and-so was an Eastern Star. I was like, is that what's happening here? What is that? Now, coming from South Carolina, I had heard of Eastern Star, but like tangentially, right? Like in the background. I didn't know what they were. But we were at an Eastern Star burial service, a committal, I don't know what they call it, but we're at this service. And my mother is not an emotional individual. She's not emotional, she's not dramatic. But she's shifting in her seat. And my mother's a teeny tiny little thing. She had a little thing. She's shifting in her seat. She's not comfortable. I said, Mommy, are you okay? She was like, because we are sitting there while they are reading from their books, right? And they're saying these words. And I remember this. I didn't understand what they were saying, but it sounded demonic. It just had it was not godly. I knew that. I was like, I don't know what they talk about. It was like, I don't even want to repeat it. It was like tree, to the wind, to the tree. I don't.
Okay, so fun fact. Ever since I was younger, I always dreaded going to funerals. And this is why. The feeling that I would have going into the funeral around certain family members, around certain people up there on the pew and up there on the stage, and just what was being said. Every time at the funeral, the deities' names would be spoken more than the actual person that was laying there in the casket. You know what I mean? And it's just the feeling that that's why I don't do the whole funerals, the graveyards, none of that. But let's let these ladies get back into it, because boy, are they cooking. She's cooking. Oh, hold on. Let me get my little face up out of it. I'll put me down here.
Know what was happening, but my mother was severely uncomfortable, and we sat there for about another 15 minutes, and this service was going to happen and finish, and then my mother's pastor was going to come in and take over for the Christian part of the service. But my mother turned to me and she was like, let's go. And this was her good friend, like lifelong friend. She was like, let's go. And I was like, Mom, your pastor hasn't even arrived yet. She was like, I don't care. Get me out of here now. And I was like, yes, ma'am. Okay. Got her stuff, got her bag. She was like, she was literally with her little self pushing me out the door. When we got to the car, she says, you didn't feel that? Right. I said, I did. She says, I don't know what that was, but we didn't need to be in there.
Before we continue with the video, I have a quick question for you. Has God called you to YouTube? If so, I'm offering a YouTube that's
engaged.
Hold on, y'all.
Organizations until another year or so.
My bad, Lala.
When my oldest sister, who I mentioned to you, lived in New Jersey, my oldest sister had moved back to South Carolina. She got engaged. And she got engaged to my now brother-in-law, and they bought a home, right? And so before the wedding, my younger sister and I were part of the wedding, but we went down a couple of days early before the wedding to just see the house and help her with the preparations. And when I got to my sister's house, now in my denouncing video, I told this story, but I labeled the person a close relative. But she and I have spoken. I'm like, look, I'm gonna tell it. And she was like, go ahead and tell it, because everybody know. And she was like, and people who watched your little video, they knew it was me. I was like, well, she was like, we saw you on the internet telling all my business. I went into her office. This is my sister.
Does anybody else know that every time you get a new job, you actually get a new 401k? Because I just found out, and apparently
business. I went into her office. This is my sister, and on the wall is a portrait of a lady who was dressed like that lady who had passed away. This is how I made the connection. Same kind of outfit, a sash, the logo of the Order of the Eastern Star that looked to me like a pentagram, the same outfit. And I looked at my sister. I was like, what is this? What is this? She was like, that's my Easter Star lady. I was like, why you got it? Why do you have this? And she was like, where you been? I am a member of the Order of the Easter Star. I didn't know that. I didn't know that my older sister was a part. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And on that portrait that my sister had, underneath that lady was a banner. And the banner said, Mother of them all. So Gigi was like, what that mean? Mother of them all. She was like, how you, a big time sorority lady, you the president of the chapter, you don't know what that means? I was like, I have no clue. I need you to tell me what that means. She said, Gigi, don't you know that Freemasonry and the Order of the Eastern Stars, that's how y'all got your start? First of all, in my pride, I was like, no, ma'am. I said, because Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated was founded on the campus of Howard University. And let me tell you, the brothers of Phi Beta Sigma were the ones that helped to found this organization. We ain't got nothing to do with Freemasonry. I don't know what this is, but it ain't got nothing to do with Zeta. It ain't got nothing to do with Sigma. And my older sister was like, okay, look it up. Now, she was saying that from a place of, pride. She was like, you don't even know what you in. So the wedding happened, and as soon as I got home, I was on the Google. I was like, Freemason, whatever, order. I couldn't even remember what it was. And all of this information popped up, right? And I started, and this is like, this must have been like 2015. So a couple years have passed by since that lady passed away. And I was fixated at my computer like all afternoon, like learning about the little bit that I could find at that time. Both of my grandparents, my father's parents in particular, were Freemasons. My grandma.
People was dying.
That's exactly what I was coming back to say. That's what I believe. That's 100% what I believe. We had an inordinate amount of early death in my family. And growing up, I didn't know what that was, but I just, in big families, one of the things that they say in big families is like, well, it's just more of us to die, right? They say that. There's more of us to die, so of course more of us are going to die. But one thing that just never was jiving was the ages, like how young they were. These are my first cousins now. I lost my very first cousin when she was 6 years old. I was 8, she was 6. The next first cousin died when he was 26. I mentioned him to you. My next cousin died when he was 35. My next cousin died when he was 41. My father's older brother died when he was 49. My dad was 51. And then the brother underneath him died when he just turned 50, but they died in succession, right? My baby cousin died at 2 months old. And when I denounced, along with deliverance and just reading and getting my hands on everything I could as a non-Freemason, one of the things that I learned was that as they go, up in rank and they go up in those degrees and they say those oaths, that one of the spiritual consequences is early death. And, one of the things that I heard from Minister Tommy and others was like, ask questions, find out from the people in your family. So girl, I was, this time last year, actually, last February of 2024, I had only been out for a few months. I was on the phone. I have an uncle who is a bishop in Maryland, and I said, Uncle, I need to ask you a question. I said, tell me honestly, do you know anything about, this is my father's brother, do you know anything about granddaddy or grandmama maybe being involved in the Freemasons or Order of Eastern Star? He said, girl, what you talking about? He said, I have my daddy's Masonic Bible. I was like, what daddy? He was like, your granddaddy, my father. I have this Masonic Bible. And he was like, and not only that, he was like, mommy, his mom was very high up. I said, very high up in the Order of Eastern Stars? He said, He says, I don't know too much about it, right? He says, but I remember that. And I spoke to a couple of other family members who confirmed that, right? And then, the father started downloading. He was like, ask about this one, and ask about that, and ask what they was doing in that backwoods down there. right? So what started to become very evident was the tie to witchcraft in my family, right? The folks who was doing things, and down there they call it roots, right? That person worked the root on you. They're not working roots, they're working spells. It's the occult, it's witchcraft, it's demonic, it's from the pits of hell. It's sorcery. It's the thing that the Father says, the acts of the sinful nature are obvious. Stay away from it. Get away from it. But another teaching that comes from the South very often is like, oh, if you don't believe in it, it doesn't work, right? But that's not true. That's not true. I believe that intercessors can pray and we can undo some of that stuff. I really do believe that. But that's why God says stay away from it. That's why the Father says don't do it, right? Nobody, no entity on this earth has more power than the Most High God. The Most High God is almighty. He is all powerful. He is omnipotent. We know that. But those fallen angels, where we think they at? Who do we think they are? They've got some level of power. They've got some level of their entities, right? And I'm telling you, Lala, I didn't understand that, right? I didn't understand that. But I started doing a ton of just, asking questions. And then I have another cousin on my mother's side of the family because I found out that my mother's father was a Mason. Right. And this, I kind of knew that though. I knew that. But after I denounced, I gingerly brought it up to my mother again. I said, Ma, you remember when we went to so-and-so's funeral? She said, yeah, girl, I remember. I said, but wasn't your dad, wasn't he a part of that? And she was like, well, I never saw anything like that with the uniforms and the aprons on. I never saw that. She goes, but I will tell you what I saw. She was like, I remember my father reading this Bible that I knew was not the Holy Bible. This is my mother speaking. She says, and we could never go near it, and we could never look at it. And he would tell us, don't touch it, don't ever touch it. And she said, I believe that was his Mason Bible. I said, I can tell you it was. I'm telling you it was. And, there's been early death on my mother's side of the family as well. For sure, sickness.
Okay, so the full video, she has the link for it, exposing the deadly curses of Freemasonry and the Eastern Star. So you already know what we about to do. Bow! We about to flip this bad boy on over. We about to go on over to Lala Jenkins channel. Because you know me, I ain't a gatekeeper. I'm one that keep it real. Let's just go on over to the video tab. It says here, ex-chapter president exposes witchcraft in sorority 7 hours ago. People are dying. Prophetic warning. The hidden deadly curse of ... We already watched it. You don't got to tap it. Not every Christian conference is from God. Be on guard. And that was 5 days ago. And since we over here on the tube, let's go on over to my channel. And Damika's rising. Damika is rising 999. Excuse me. And just go ahead on over, tap that playlist. Since you're over on the playlist tab, you go ahead and hit reaction videos. You can see here that we have some, I talk about me, divine, and the spirits. You understand what I'm saying? We have some videos here. And Hayden has suddenly ... AB, rush to the hospital. Monkey see, monkey do, monkey what? I don't know. How about you? Young Pharaoh and the ... If you're into tarot divination, go ahead and click that playlist tab again, and then you can go on over to hashtag Lost Souls Tarot. Tap that, and you'll have tarot divination like what's the current energy? ... Tap it so you can figure it out. Saxophones are getting louder, liar, liar. Y'all tongues on fire. Whose tongues is on fire? Tap that to figure out what's going on. Who is Sekhmet? Tap that to figure out what is going on. And who are these new spirits? Tap that to figure out what is going on. If you would like to go ahead and donate to the channel, donate to my journey, donate out of love. Because you already donated your time and your energy. I appreciate you. I do. I love you. Thank you. But I do have a cash app. Money sign LOST. SSSOULS TAROT 999. That's Lost Souls Tarot 999. Or I even have ZELLE at the moment. Don't worry, getting it upgraded. Just got to do a couple more things. But that ZELLE is Lost Souls Tarot 999 @gmail.com. That's LOST SSSOULSTAROT999 Much peace, much light, much love, but especially the darkness because of dark matter. I love y'all. May the truth continue to be revealed. Put your seatbelts on. Peace.